I'm Dr. Ayza Yazdani Abid, and I'm an educational psychologist. I have been in this field for about more than a decade now, and I came especially in this field basically because of my interest in psychology and narrowed down to educational psychology because the way children are being raised, the problems they are having which are not being addressed. So I want to work on an age group which needs attention, and the only way of giving them that attention is going through the schools, the teachers, so we can maximize the effectiveness of the psychologists. Parents bring their children to me basically because when they have difficulties in their education, they are not able to do the classwork required or the behavior which is expected of them, and they are failing their educational milestones. So parents are concerned that the child is failing in class 1 or class 2 or maybe senior classes, and then the whole focus is around academics basically. However, they fail to understand that there are many other factors in a child's life which are affecting his academics. Life has changed a lot in Pakistan over the last few years, and from what we used to have huge houses and maybe families and moving around on holidays and that life, that we had that life basically, I think. And today's children are growing up in smaller houses, lack of playing areas, and of course issues of security where kidnappings and violence and other issues are rampant. So parents are very naturally, I endorse them, that they want to protect their children. So the children are confined to their homes. Firstly, because of this geographical changes which have come, the security changes which have made bound the children to their houses, and third is the internet factor. So children are simply not opting to go out even when they can. Now the problems that arise from this is that we have developed a culture of tuitions, and children have a full day of school, and after that they have 4 or 5 hours of tuition, and in between they are all constantly asked to hurry up with whatever they are doing. Now just imagine a child who is exposed to a certain set of material, educational material or whatever. His mind cannot relax. The child is always under pressure and under stress. Sports activities have been severely curtailed. Young children, adults, older people in all stages of life, they need to have a physical outlet, whether it's in a form of a walk or in form of a team sport or any activity. So when children don't get this outlet, they are forced to develop other means of letting out their stress. And that can be jump for young children. Let's start with that. Young children can jump on the sofas in the house. Then they can just destroy the things in their house. And then they can be nagging their brothers and sisters or their mother. And then they can be pushing and shoving. And then we become worried that the child is hyper. Whereas in fact the child just needs an open space to jump, to play, and to maybe wrestle with his age fellows. So the first step towards friendship is basically testing each other's limits and understanding how the other person thinks. So when children are denied so many opportunities in their natural environment, they have simply nowhere to go. Another thing is that with the new kind of life that children are living, they are constantly under the scrutiny of their parents. So they have very little space left to move. So they are withdrawing into an internet world where the parents can't follow them. Now the effect of all that is that they need to develop their physical senses, and they need to develop awareness about their own body in the space around them. So sports is a very important factor from day one. Day one, why? Because the baby needs to move. And from then on, the baby needs to crawl and test his environment by putting things in his mouth, and so on. And then eventually children need to jump and run and feel the fresh air. The brain needs to explore itself in its environment, and hence we go for the writing stage. Children have difficulty in writing because their fine motor skills are not being developed. When we don't let them do beadwork, we don't let them play with sand, we don't let them play with pebbles. So what is the child, how is the child supposed to pick up a pencil and write? And so from there on, we go on to little disturbances in the children. When they are not able to express themselves and they are just supposed to meet the requirement of the school curriculum, they have difficulties along the way. There are a number of ways in which children manifest their difficulties. Academics is the straightaway first thing you can say, that they are not responding to the classwork or not meeting the deadlines or whatever. But when a child is having emotional problems, it's in a number of different ways, because I go by the age of the child. Little children up till 5 years of age will express differently. Up till 10, it will be a different way, and we have to go by their developmental age span. So at every stage it changes until teenage starts, and that is when we say that teenager has begun to cognize all this, and that means the thinking element is now added. And now eventually by 12-14 years old, the child sort of begins to think like an adult. So the form changes. So whenever we talk about children and their disturbances and their issues, we need to first of all take into consideration what their age group is and how any problem, whether it's a learning problem, whether it's an emotional problem, it will be manifested in that stage. When we talk about diagnosing children with different problems, let me just say two things. Learning disability is very different from autism, intellectual impairment, or ADHD. But however, there is a issue which is affecting the child, and at every stage sports is very important. For instance, we have a child who is more active than others for his age. So he needs time to jump, because this is a very important factor for autistic children and hyperactive children. They need a physical stimulation, so they can do it for 1 hour, 2 hours. I have cases coming where the child can be on a jumping castle for up to 2 hours or more. So in all these problems, exercise, stimulation, exertion, it helps. It also helps to channelize the energy of the child. And of course, when the child is interacting with more than one people, the child is learning a lot. He's learning to be with people, because in the case of autistic children, we need to involve them in activities. So they need to be out with people and interacting at different levels. Secondly, children with hyperactivity issues and with learning disabilities, they will need to learn in multi-dimensional ways. Especially with children who have learning disabilities, we want to teach them using different means. It is textual, it is sensory, it is auditory, it is visual. We use different modes for teaching children with learning disabilities. So when they are in sports, they are translating their thoughts into body movements, and that is where they understand and they can help align themselves in nature, and their midline and their balance is improving, and that all helps with writing, thinking, and of course the eye-hand motor coordination, because it matters a lot. When you are copying from the board to your copy, you lose track. So helping children keep focus by playing tennis, by playing any other like squash and lots of other games. Swimming is very calming, and every sport has a different purpose, whether it's an individual sport or whether it's a team sport. When societies change, they change their way of living, eating, and raising their children. Now, if we have this plea that both parents are working, so what will the child do? I have a very simple reply to that. If both parents are working, then don't have children. Because where are you going to leave the child? So basically the child needs a parent. So either parent should work a schedule which involves part of the day with the child, especially when the child is back from the school. And then they can also have groups and parents who can divide the duty.